Since I used feather and fan stitch in the Sonic Boom cowl, I wanted to give you a quick review of how to work this stitch. On the swatch, I am at the apex of a crest, so I'll start with knit 1 and yarn over. Notice my yarn over is around up the front of the needle rather than up over the top and down the needle. So yarn overs go this way. And in this particular pattern, I need 4 of them. So there's 2 and 3 and 4. Now I'm getting into the trough of the wave, and I want those stitches to sort of lean to the left so they look like they are falling into the trough. There's several ways I can do this. The most common is SSK, which means slip, slip, knit. So insert the right needle as if to knit, and then just pop the stitch off, don't knit it. And we do that twice, so once again, this is also called slipping knitwise with yarn and back. And now I put them back on the left needle and work them together in a sort of through the back of the loop-ish manner. And there you go, you see the right stitch leaning on top of the left stitch. I can also work slip knit PSSO, or sometimes just SKP, which means slip knit pass the slip stitch over, and that looks like this. You start again with slipping a stitch knitwise. Now you knit the next stitch. They're both on the right needle, and you pass the slip stitch over. It looks a lot like binding off one stitch on the right needle, and you get the same effect. A third way of doing this is to set the stitches up on the previous row or round. In this case, on the previous row, when I purled these stitches, instead of purling them this way, wrapping the yarn counterclockwise, I wrapped the yarn this way clockwise, which is the opposite of how it's usually done. And by doing that, I have made those stitches turn. So essentially the SS part of the SSK is already done, and all I have to do is work them together through the back of the loop. Of course, the downside is that's a very mindful way of doing it. You have to know which stitches to wrap the other way on the wrong side row when you're working back. So all 3 of those produce decreases that lean to the left. I am now in the nadir of my trough, and I want to do a 3 into 1 decrease, sometimes called a double decrease because we'll get rid of 2 stitches. Very often this is worked with the center stitch on the top of the stack, but that emphasizes the decrease line, and in this pattern I wanted to de-emphasize the decrease line. So here's what I did. Once again, slip the first stitch knitwise with yarn and back. Now I will knit the next 2 stitches together and then pass the slip stitch over. That looks very similar to a combination of what I just did over here. And then the last part of the pattern is just going to be knit 2 together, knit 2 together, knit 2 together. So that's what knit 2 together looks like. It's 1, 2, and 3. And then a bunch of knits and yarn overs. And that's your basic review of how to work feather and fan from the knit side of the fabric.